Hey, hey, Star Wars fans. May the fourth be with you. Not really a big Star Wars fan, but I know a lot of people in the Wars are. So here's your little greeting for the morning. We're here today in my office, but we are joined by a gentleman in San Francisco who you may know. He's been on the show maybe once or twice. Peter Nanula of Concert Golf Partners. Peter, how are you, man? Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. Good to be
Yeah.
back.
So you just made a move from Newport Beach to San Francisco. What are things like up there?
Weather is gorgeous. Sun is out. Fog is receding. It's golf weather. Yeah.
All right, good deal. Of course, there's some beautiful courses up there. You've got how far are you from like Chambers Bay and those places?
That's up north, but we're near Olympic Club
Yep.
and places you've probably covered a lot. Lake Merced Golf Club,
Yeah.
San Francisco Golf Club, the California Club. We've got a
Yeah.
bunch of great clubs in town.
Oh man, yeah, you're spoiled for choice there. You just put out a really good article that I read. It was an email blast that I received, and I think you might have put it out on social media as well. But when a yes vote, is that a green light? And I'd love to kind of dive deeper into what you wrote there. If you could just kind of set the stage for us, what you meant by the title and kind of what the content's all about.
Yeah, the backdrop, Gabe, is so many clubs that you and I deal with are funding big renovations, right? Especially during COVID and trying to up their facilities game, right? And so most of them flip open their bylaws and say, 51% vote. We can pass a $5 or $10 million assessment project for a renovation. Oops. What if we get a 70% vote? That means 30% of the people voted against, which means we're probably looking at some pretty heavy attrition if we jam this thing through. So I think the premise of the article was just, a lot of boards I'm talking to now really think their bylaw requirement for a vote is sort of irrelevant. And what they're saying to me is, we really need to find a way to test to see if this is a 90+ percenter. Because if it's 90+%, very few people are going to leave. They're excited. They want to pay for it. People aren't going to quit.
Yeah, do you find that right now in sort of the environment we're in that people are willing to vote yes on some of these things, or more projects moving forward because more people are using their clubs more? Do you see that?
Yeah, it's like the K-shaped recovery they talk about in Washington. The haves and the have-nots. The have clubs are pushing through massive projects that you and I read about with Joe Bark's writing and other people's writing, $10-20 million plus renovations with overwhelming votes, and they're doing it. Like, great time. Like a company like ours that has ample financial strength, we just pulled forward a ton of capital spending and said, if we're largely closed, why don't we redo our ballrooms and banquet spaces and wedding facilities? Because we're not doing any of that business right now, and we're not interrupting anybody's wedding. Right. So let's spend the money. And so if you're a high-end club, like I just saw Windermere down in Florida, you're seeing these massive renovations go through. Great. The have-nots, like the good clubs that struggle to push through a $5 or $10 million renovation, they're having second thoughts because they're thinking, wow, if we lose 30 to 50 members over this thing, that's not okay. Like, we could dip down into another dangerous spot again, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah, you don't want to put yourself in the position you were in 5 years ago or something. Yeah. So, like, how do you go about it then? What would your advice be to folks who are in that position, Peter?
Yeah, we're hearing some good ideas. I mean, maybe these aren't new ideas, but the idea of a straw vote. We heard about a club up in Minnesota do a straw vote. So instead of like do the easel boards and the pictures and do the formal vote and push it through, no. Let's do something that looks more like a test vote. Hey, folks, what if we were to do A, B, or C? And if people say, sure, I'll pay an extra $150 a month for the next decade or so, or I'll do $5,000 to get this grill room, this new fire pit, outdoor dining, this new greens renovation. Yeah, if that passes in like a straw poll, you know all the vendors who can create a really good survey. You can use SurveyMonkey and it's cheap, but if you use Club Benchmarking or Club Thinking Partners or any of the really good vendors in our industry to do a nice survey for you, and the answer comes back 62%, let's not gear up 4 months of work with the consultants and the drawings and all the effort that gets people invested in that emotionally. let's just do the straw poll. So that's one idea.
Hmm.
And then the other idea we ran into recently, a club in North Carolina that I talked about in the article, they just have decided around the board table that instead of 51% vote, they've just said up front to everyone, if this doesn't pass with at least a 90% vote, we're not pursuing it.
Hmm.
So you better really want this thing and be willing to pay for it. Well, that's another way of attacking the problem. But I think the old days of just saying, whatever the vote requirements are in our bylaws, I don't know. My personal sense is that way of thinking might be dying.
Yeah. What in your mind would be the percentage that people, should be looking at? Like, is it 90% or is it something different?
I like 90. Again, you do a lot of membership work. The number of people who vote no on something doesn't mean all those people are going to quit. No, they're just registering their disapproval, right? And so they voice their disapproval, and some number of them are going to quit. But if you figure half, if you figure you get a 90% vote, so 10% voted against, figure that's 5% people quitting, just as a crude rule of thumb. Well, if your club has 400 members in it, you could handle 20 people leaving because you're going to pick some up. Yeah, maybe that's okay. But again, back to my original point, if you're going to have a 70-30 vote, 30% of those 400 people voted no. If you can handle 15% of your 400 members quitting, what's that, 60 people quitting? That's pretty devastating. Even if you think there'll be some excitement generated and you'll pick up a few members, 60 attrition over a big new assessment bill is pretty devastating. I don't think that's a good basis for proceeding with a multi-million-dollar project.
No, not at all. But it is nice when a club can spend the money, come in, have a capital partner who spends the money, and then there's there's no assessment. That's always the ideal
Right.
situation.
Right. Yeah, we're happy to be a partner for these clubs, as you know. We've seen a couple clubs say, hey, we've got some wealthy members at the club, and they're willing to donate the money, put a plaque up, and kind of dedicate the whole new terrace or patio in their honor. That's interesting. I just don't know how replicable that is, Gabe. Like every club has some rich people in it, but can that be a business model, right? Can we
Right.
just go tap into those donors and say, let's build a new such and such? I don't
Usually
know.
comes with strings attached too. I feel like even it's usually more than just that little plaque, isn't it?
Yeah, and it can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
What were some of the projects that you guys did with your properties? You said you did some work here, when things were slower.
Yeah, so ballrooms, weddings, right? When the wedding business just crushed over the past year, we thought, boy, let's get to work on those areas. That one was an easy call. I would say the golf courses, right, with the round count spiking so massively, really nice for our members to be able to play more golf, right, during COVID, which has been a great thing in the industry. But the impact on the golf courses is pretty extreme. So our
Sure.
superintendents told us we need to put more money back into the golf courses because we're up 20, 40+% in round counts. And we said, go for it. Like now is a good time, we think. Now is a good time to be putting money back into your facilities because golf's having this COVID boom. Let's plow back into our facilities so we emerge stronger and better.
Yeah. If you were a golf club and like you kind of needed that renovation, but right now the getting's kind of good because you're getting all those rounds, how would you decide, when to pull the trigger on that?
Yeah, good question. We're doing that on just a rolling basis. Like if our super raises his hand and we're hearing it from avid golfers at our club, we're just doing it like really quick. If you're saying typical golf club out there thinking about these renovations, the problem is you've got greens and grounds committee, and then you've got your board, and then you've got surveying your members, and so the decision making isn't quite as speedy.
Sure.
And now you're coming into the golf season in a big portion of the country. So it's a little hard to be doing disruptive capital projects on your golf course right now.
Right.
But, most of them that we see try to do those things in out of season or kind of fringe parts of the season where they're not disrupting their members as much.
Sure.
Different considerations.
How do you guys go about it? Like, for someone who's maybe considering bringing in someone like you guys, and they're used to going through the committees and having the approval, getting the votes and whatnot, and then moving forward with projects. can you explain just how the process works? Like, let's say I'm a member of one of your clubs in Massachusetts or something. What's the process of getting accomplished maybe a project that I'm looking at?
Yeah, so we're doing this right now in a club in Michigan, confidential. But here's a club we met a few months ago. They had the same kind of issues clubs have all the time. They've done renovations over the years. They have a little bit of debt left over from before, but pretty moderate. They want to do more. So the members have been talking about wealthy members donating. They've been talking about assessments, and there's pushback. And there's always at least half of your members that are willing to pay for things. But if you have a third to a half that don't, that's a big problem. And so what do we do now? And so we started talking to them and said, we'll do those projects. We'll do them right now instead of you saving up the money for 5 or 10 years. That'll be forever, right? And so, we put a proposal in front of their board. The board voted 9-0. And now we're in that process of the board having a series of Zooms and sort of town hall meetings to explain what the proposal is. And the reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. You mean we're going to get that outdoor terrace, fire pit, outdoor dining, expand and redo our bar now, like this year? We're going to get the hundreds of trees taken down, which we've been talking about doing forever, to allow our greens to breathe, and all these improvements to our bunkers and all these other things. It's a couple $1 million worth of projects. Instead of waiting for 5 or 10 years to save the money to do those things ourselves and assess and lose 30 to 50 more people, you mean they're just going to do that this year and maybe lapse into next year? I'm in. And so we're doing those town hall meetings and those Zooms, and people are asking questions. But now we're getting to the end of that education period, and people are about to vote starting in a week. And so they'll vote. I think they'll vote 90% plus, and we'll be there in 2 months or a month.
That's fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Well, if that does go through, that takes you up to what, 22 or 23?
Maybe 22, and then there's a couple more behind that. It's the same process. Like every time I talk to you, it's a club in some part of the country with a similar set of issues. A lot of it is about capital improvement funding. Yeah. Can we do that now and not drive the member bill up?
So yes. How do you guys prioritize that then? Like, how do you just say, okay, well, they need this renovation to the clubhouse, but the golf course also needs this work. How do you guys manage it on your end?
Yeah, it's a team effort. The board has strong feelings about this because they've been talking about this with their members, Gabe, right? Their members have been saying, we would like this. And the board has been having meetings with their members talking about building X, maybe even easel renderings of something, right? We'll hear those requirements from the board and say, yeah, we agree with most of that. Now, sometimes when our team comes there, we have a little different spin on a few things, but mostly it's, what do the members want? What does the board want to do? And then, we put our own views on that sort of stuff, come together on a mutually agreed list of projects and say, let's do them, and let's do them now at no cost to the members. And so you could see why the votes on these things are always over 90% in our case, because when the members hear they're going to get all these improvements that they've been talking about for years, they're going to get them now. And my bill is still $712 a month or whatever it was last month at no cost. Let's just do this. These people have the capital. They know what they're doing. Let's get this going, and we could impact our club like this year.
Right. How about like 5-10 years down the road? Like once you've been you've been managing, not just managing, but owning this club for a while. How do you then prioritize what needs to get done?
Well, look at your club, Carrollwood Country Club, Tampa, Florida. My high school golf team club. Things do come up, as you know. Like clubs are capital intensive. So you look up and pick a number, 7 years. You're going to have major stuff that needs to be done. So at Carrollwood, when the staff came forward and said we need to do some major new renovations, either whether it's out by the pool or on the golf course or the driving range or the clubhouse, we always budget to have a regular amount of sort of maintenance capital improvements every year. And then we also budget across all our clubs to have some big projects every 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so if it's Carrollwood's turn this year, we'll be doing some big stuff. If it's Heathrow Country Club in Orlando, Florida, we just did some major stuff that you wouldn't say is like annual, keeping the place in good shape, major stuff.
Yep.
Clubs need to budget for that. And I think most member-owned clubs we meet with don't really. They will try to keep up with the regular day-to-day stuff. And then it depends on who's on the board that year. Are they going to do a big new assessment and maybe drive off 50 of their members because they now need to do big projects? And like I said, the haves and the have-nots. The have clubs are doing it big time. They have the money and they're doing it, and that's good. But the have-not clubs don't have a reserve built up of $2, $3, $5 million that they've been saving up for. So they've got to do a fresh new assessment, go out to a bank, and go deep. And that's a risky proposition. That's why I wrote that piece. If you can get a 90+% vote on it in a straw poll or something, you should do it. But if it's less than that, you should consider other options, I think.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at my club, I think we just redid the cart bridges, which was a big project, probably, I don't know, $50,000 to $100,000 just to redo that. You did the bunkers season before, a ton. Redid the restaurant, and this is a club that you guys have had for, I don't know, 10 years, 5-10 years anyways. So I think that eases a lot of people's mind that you're not just going to come in, make a couple flashy changes, and then then let the place rot. This is ongoing things that you guys are continually improving your clubs, and I've seen it firsthand. Now, the other option that a lot of clubs think about is maybe selling off a piece of land. And while that can seem like an easy fix, it's kind of a Band-Aid that could come back to haunt you. So let's talk about that one, Peter.
I was going to use the same word. That's a Band-Aid. So we've seen a lot of clubs do that. Yeah, we sold off a parcel of land and we got a little money in, but they have to pay taxes on that. And so the net proceeds they have to spend isn't great. But anyway, they'll do that. And then, they solved a small portion of their issues, but I think it's just more of a structural issue. You can put a Band-Aid on your capital funding. That's fine. But the structural issue is, are you setting aside money, as you and I just discussed, for the every year stuff? And then the next level, which where you get your gold stars as a board of a member-owned club, is, are you setting aside enough money in a regular way to save up for that every 5, 7, 8 year major project stuff? Right. If you're not, then you're going to borrow from a bank, do a big assessment, and potentially run lots of your members off. And that's not the way any of us or the members of these boards would run their business, but that's the way clubs get operated. And so there's got to be a better way. Our way is one way. We love partnering with clubs like this, and we can help. But if the club board can get their act together on a 10-year strategic plan that has this kind of funding in it, and then stick to it, and this is probably the bigger problem with a lot of consultants in our industry, go to all these meetings and try to do board trainings. Yeah, we got a great board this year, I often hear, and they have a strategic plan like this. And then 2 years later, some of those board members rolled off and they whipsawed it some other completely different direction. And now that 10-year plan is out the window. Right. Very tough to run a business like a country club with the changing board and the changing business plans every other year.
A rotating cast of characters does not lend itself to any kind of consistency, does it?
Well, we saw one board recently, Gabe, that was interesting, where they found a board president and everyone liked him so much because he was so competent and into it. They just kept him on as president for like 6 or 7 years in a row. And it seems a little odd, but boy, that board president really knew what he was doing. The strategy didn't change every year. There wasn't quite as much infighting about priorities. They basically just decided to keep with what they were doing. I don't know. For some clubs, I personally would recommend that, because at least you've got the institutional memory built up of somebody on your board who's sticking to the game plan, as opposed to the whipsaw effect.
Yeah, maybe some sort of bylaw that talks about keeping their term in office if there's a certain approval or something like that. I think there needs to be more creativity, definitely, in how some of these things are approached. I know the other thing that you recommend, we've had Dick Copeland on this show talking about it with you, is just doing those orientations so that these board members are up to speed, and that's definitely another way to tackle it. But I personally, from personal experience, enjoy just having not having to worry about that stuff, like not having to ever think about assessments not ever have to worry about can this get done, because we're gonna have to start shaking the members down. That's really nice thing to have, and what you guys provide over there. If folks don't know about you, Peter, just want to have a conversation with you, your right hand man Matt there, and just kind of get the ball rolling confidentially. How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, first thing, go to our website, concertgolfpartners.com, and you'll see us listed there. And you can email us or call us up. And we just have these kinds of confidential chats, Gabe, with board members all the time. Mostly it's just off the record, one board member inquiring. It's not an authorized mission from the board to go explore their options. It's just a board member saying, here's what I do in my business. I pick up and call experts in the industry. I call Dan Dennehy at Club Thinking Partners. I call Gabe. I call Steve Graves, at Creative Golf Marketing. They just call and try to pick the brains of people in the industry who have expertise. And we have a lot of those discussions about anything. Like, we want to redo our bylaws. We're thinking about renovations, and we just chat with them. And then it plants a seed, and sometimes they call us back in a year or two and say, we'd like to pick up on that and see what a proposal would look like. Other times we're referring them to someone like you because they need to get 50 new members into their club, or we're referring them to somebody else in our industry because they need a specific type of help. That's what we like to do, is just kind of consult with these clubs to figure out the best way to, like we say on our website, preserve and enhance their club.
Right. Yeah. The video is fantastic. We play it here on the show. If usually you get a little taste of it, but it's about a 4 or 5 minute video. It's definitely worth a watch just to see, just to get some ideas going. And I think, again, that's the value in talking to the folks at Concert, is just to get that idea process going. Worst case scenario, you'll come out with some good ideas. Best case scenario, you'll have a real solution that will impact your club for many, many years to come. So check it out. concertgolfpartners.com. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us here on May the 4th. Again, May the 4th be with you, and we'll catch you back here next Tuesday on Private Club Radio. Thanks, Peter. Have a good one, man.